SDRs and our sales development leadership, we're starting to share more and more practices. If you are a marketer, for example, or if you're in our channel or any other department outside of sales development and sales, it's a blast. And it gets everybody focused on, okay, you need X pipeline generated for each segment, and we could be doing better in topping off the respective pipelines. So here's your chance to contribute. And if you fall on your face, the next prospecting day is 4 weeks from now. So learn from this and really prepare for the next one. And you'd be surprised what you can win and how many people are going to benefit from your hard work and preparation.
Hi, friends. Welcome to the Sales Enablement Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Paul. That was my friend Ralph Barsi. He's the Vice President of Global Inside Sales at Tray.io, and he's, I'll admit, one of my favorite people in the sales universe. As always, when Ralph and I get together, we talk about a lot of things in addition to sales. In this episode, we start out talking about Ralph's music career, as in rock and roll music. His band, named Segue, has been together for 30 years. In the past, they toured, and they still get together, play gigs. And I watched some of the videos online. They're really good. And they're getting ready to record a brand new album. So we talk about that. And I don't have any conversation with Ralph without talking about books, because Ralph, one of the few people I know, reads as much as I do. And he always has some really interesting book recommendations. So he shares those. I share a few of my own recommendations as well. And then we segue, hopefully you caught that, into talking about sales. And Ralph shares some of his management processes. We talk about his Team Tuesdays, where someone from within the company, every week, someone from within the company comes and shares what they do, which I think is a great acumen builder for sellers. He talks about prospecting day, a day during which most business units contribute to the pipeline. That's kind of cool, company-wide prospecting. And Ralph shares his processes for effective communications, how he uses his weekly updates to manage up and down the chain with clear, precise, consistent communications. So we'll get into this and much, much more. Now, before we get to Ralph, I want to remind you to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to it. And if you subscribe, we'd certainly appreciate it if you could also give us your feedback about how we're doing in the form of a review. So thank you. All right, let's jump into it. Ralph, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Andy. It's always great to be here.
So we're trying to count, I think, fourth or fifth appearance. I said, if you do 5, you get the blazer. So just like on Saturday Night Live. Except the blazer is one of mine that I'm not using anymore, coming out of my closet. So no big deal.
You don't happen to be a 40 regular, do you?
I actually am, yeah. So depending on the cut, either 39 or 40 regular. So I'm sure it'll fit.
Yeah, it'll fit like a glove. Can't wait.
There you go. So you've had sort of some big news. I mean, first of all, you said you celebrated 24 years of marriage this summer. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And what's your wife's name?
My wife's name is Catherine. Her nickname, however, is Cathay.
Cathay, like Cathay?
That's right. Only 2 long A's, Cathay.
Cathay. Interesting. Now, where does that come from?
It originates in Hungary/Austria, where her father grew up. And instead of saying Kathy, they say Cathay. It's spelled Kathe. There are no accents over any of the letters. And her full name's Catherine.
Interesting. So my wife's father grew up in Hungary.
Okay.
As well. His parents sent him to the U.S. in 1938 to avoid the Nazis. Mm-hmm. But yeah. She's just did her 23andMe or whatever, and surprise, she's half Hungarian.
There you go.
Funny how that turns out.
Yeah, right. That's pretty accurate.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Mother's some generic waspish type thing, and dad was Ashkenazic Jew from Hungary. So
wow. Well, I have yet to meet another Cathay, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Which makes my wife even more unique and special.
Very much so. Very much so.
That's right.
And the big news for me was that, and this was news altogether. I if you had told me before, I apologize for not keeping mine, but you're a member of a rock band that's been around for 30 years?
Yes. For some time now. We started in 1994.
Almost 30 years.
Yeah, almost 30 years. It's comprised of high school and college buddies of mine, and it's just straight ahead rock and roll.
Yeah, good stuff too. I was listening to some of the tracks. The band's called Segue.
Yes, thank you, Andy.
And you're the drummer.
I am.
And if I saw correctly in an old video, the video was so old, you actually had hair.
That is true. Our heyday was a good 20 years ago. So you're exactly right. And what a head of hair it was. It was like a lion's mane at one point.
Yes. You're hiding it with a baseball cap or a trucker cap, but it was like out the back, I think. I was like, holy cow, that's Ralph.
Yeah, good times, man.
And so do you guys still gig? I mean,
Yeah, it's not much beyond a house party, or some get together in a cul-de-sac these days. We're all getting up there, and
oh, come on, you're a young man.
I know it's all mental, right? But there's been a lot of us traveling over the last several years. This is obviously pre-COVID, which has just kept us from any consistency in rehearsing or performing. Our heyday was really, 96 through 2000. We were just gigging like crazy, doing 50 to 60 shows a year, all in California, Northern California and Southern California. Managed to release a couple records that, were on iTunes and Spotify, et cetera. But all that said, we're trying to, dust off the instruments and get back into the studio to record a new record. And so you would think we're in our mid-20s again. Everybody's fired up about it.
Well, understandably so. I mean, what a rush to be able to go out and perform in front of people like that. I mean, and you guys, you said when your heyday, I think this was on your website or somewhere I was finding online, is like, you guys had opening acts for you.
Oh yeah, it was the whole 9 yards. We weren't messing around, and I swear to you, there was a window there where I thought that's what I was going to do for a living.
Right.
But it's funny we're talking about Kathe because she was the one who was like, no, that's not going to happen. You're not going to be on a tour bus all year, going from gig to gig. No. So,
well, how big of venues did you play?
Most we would play to is maybe 600 to 800 people.
That's still a pretty big size.
Oh, hey, we'll take that. On a Thursday night doing a 90-minute to 2-hour set, it was a blast. We loved it.
Wow, that's a lot of people. I was thinking back in the old San Francisco, Great American Music Hall or one of those places, but they're smaller than that. I mean, that's a big room.
Yeah. We've played to some pretty good crowds. And then of course, on the other end of the spectrum, we've played to a crowd of 3 before as well. It kind of goes with the territory.
All right. So when you were, at your heyday and you're dealing with promoters, do you have any crazy demands you guys placed on you had in your contract, no blue M&Ms or something like that backstage?
Yeah, no, we were so stoked to even get the gig that we were very cordial and accommodating, probably more than we needed to be. But it's funny you bring up the M&Ms because I'm listening to "Running with the Devil" right now by Noel Monk about the whole Van Halen story,
right? Because
I grew up a total Van Halen nerd, especially the David Lee Roth era. So
yeah, me too.
As you know, that was one of the criterion in their rider for backstage, no brown M&Ms, which is an awesome story too, just to make sure that promoters and managers were paying attention to the detail.
To what was in the contract, absolutely.
That's right. I love that.
Yeah. Poor Eddie just passed away a couple weeks ago now.
Yeah, one of my favorites of all time. So I've been kind of revisiting and reliving my love for that band in those early days. And, it's been a very fun book to listen to. I'm plowing through it. They were true rock stars.
Yeah. Well, I have to take a look at that because I like Van Halen as well. And for a long time, even though it was Sammy Hagar variety, but 5150 is such a great
record. Great record. I saw that tour. It was great. I'm a huge Sammy Hagar fan, but I prefer his solo work. There's a couple gems that he performed with Van Halen, of course, but I'm just a bigger fan of the David Lee Roth Van Halen.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah. How are
Yeah.
you, Andy? What's the latest?
Not much. We're keeping on. You
Good.
know, more great conversations on the show with people like yourself. And you sort of got into the whole book topic because we don't talk unless we talk about books.
Yeah.
So you're talking about that. And do you have another book you're reading?
Yeah.
Your Music and People by Derek Sivers. So tell us about
Derek
that.
Sivers. Yeah. Derek
Sivers. Okay.
Sivers. Been a longtime fan of Derek Sivers since first hearing him on Tim Ferriss's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And Derek is most known for starting and leading CD Baby. So he's a musician.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to sell his own music online. Turns out he figured out an efficient way of doing that, enough to attract other musicians who wanted him to sell their stuff as well. And long story short, he ended up, really blowing up that company in a good way. Ended up selling it for tens of millions of dollars, most of which he contributed right back to music schools and music programs all over the planet, and some other cool charities. And I've just been a huge fan of his writing for a long time. And he published and then republished a book called Your Music and People, the one you just mentioned. I just plowed through that as well, and highly recommend it. It's essentially, it's almost like a how to win friends and influence people approach, but it's written for musicians, but obviously it applies to anyone and everyone.
Yeah, and it's not very easy to find. As I was researching it, I think you basically have to buy it from his website.
Correct. Yeah, you have to buy it from his website. His website is it's sive.rs. Pretty simple and straightforward. And right on that homepage, you're going to find that book, and you can read it digitally for free, or you could buy a hard copy from him. But what's unique about his style is literally every chapter actually has a footnote to it, which is a URL where you can go and read that chapter online. He's a big believer of showing your work. He touts the book by Austin Kleon of the same title. It just feels like, look, if you're producing and contributing, it's really not tangible unless it's tangible, unless we can see it online. And again, you and I have talked about this. You're leaving behind that trail of breadcrumbs so people can pick up, what you've been putting down. And I've just always loved that style.
Interesting. Yeah, no, definitely gonna check that one out. Certainly the Noel Monk as well.
Oh man, both great.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I've been reading business books mostly.
Yeah, are you into a new one right now?
Well, I mean, for this show, I read a lot of books.
Sure.
Yeah, I just read interesting book by Mike Smirklo, who's a VC based out of Texas. He had run a company called Service Source for years in the Bay Area. Called Mr. Monkey and Me, about self-doubt and how entrepreneurs can he shares his mindset. He actually calls it shape, excuse me. And yeah, interesting read. He's got a great voice and a lot that applies directly to sales too, in terms of being authentic and seeking help when you need it, being vulnerable enough to seek help, and lessons that apply to entrepreneurs or in start mode or salespeople or sales leaders even.
That's beautiful. I love that. Those traits and those reminders always come to the surface over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Help people out, be a good person, know that you've got resources out there to help you out if you need it. You don't have to go it alone, et cetera, et cetera. I love that.
Yeah. I find myself more and more when I, see things that are going on in the world, even outside of business. And that's how I judge people now. It's like, good person or not good person? And, just some basics, right? That you're there to help, you're there to serve, you're there to, have empathy about other people. It's just like, for me, it's my world is, as I get older, world's getting simpler. Good people, not good person.
Yeah, it's pretty black and white sometimes, isn't it?
It's pretty black and white. The other book I'm going back into, which I first went through a little while ago, and then is the book Nudge by Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein.
I've heard of it, haven't read it.
Subtitle being Improving Decisions About Health, Wealth, and Happiness. And I decided to go back to it because I'd heard it mentioned on a podcast. They're doing a start with this service called Tally, which is about helping people make better financial decisions and improve their credit scores and so on. But in the book, they have this really interesting concept about they talk about in the context of helping people to sort of learn new decision habits in terms of how do you frame choices for people. But I think it really struck by, because I think it applies to sales as well, as this concept they called a choice architect.
Okay.
So if you think of yourself as a seller, I divide sales into two parts. The first part is the customer's making a choice about how they want to solve their problem. And the second part is who they're going to solve the problem with, which vendor. And so there's been a lot of research done about decision making. Paul Nutt, who's this, I think he was Ohio State University professor, has written about this. He says, people always make a choice before they make a decision. The choice being, how am I going to solve this problem? They evaluate, they create alternatives, they choose the option that they want to pursue, and then they make a decision about how to go forward with it. And this idea of sales is that's really what you're doing, is you're helping your customer make a choice about how they're going to solve the problem. And if you do that, and in that process, they don't really think about it in terms of, well, what's the brand, who's the company, and so on. I'm focused on how am I going to solve my problem. And so I think this idea of a choice architect is really an interesting construct to think about in a sales context, because that's really what you're doing. Is you're structuring your interactions in such a way to be able to influence the choice the buyer makes.
I love this, and I also love that term.
Yeah. So I've been thinking a lot about that. So that's why I was diving back into that book.
That's a good one. I'm gonna have to check that out. And it 100% applies to sales. We as salespeople have to be guides or Sherpas, trusted advisors, and we have to help our prospects and customers arrive at the answer.
Yeah, and hopefully the answer is you or some version of you.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's experienced this in sales is, they think they're working the account, and the customer says, okay, well, here's our final spec. This is what we want people to bid on. And it's like, oh, well, that's got my competitor written all over it.
The competitor's in column A, not me. That's not good.
And the competitor was the choice architect. You weren't.
That's right.
So you were too busy trying to persuade the customer to buy your product, and they weren't at that point yet. They were still making their choice.
Thinking about yourself.
Yeah. So
nudge. Okay.
And then I've always got a detective book or a mystery book or something going on at the same time. So new book for people who haven't read the series. If you're into series like I am, Ian Rankin, who's a British author, Scottish author maybe, written the series about a detective named John Rebus, a Scottish detective. Maybe 25, 26 books in the series. Read them all. This is his latest one.
Wow.
It's sort of like the Scottish version of the Bosch novels by Michael Connelly. So if you've ever read any of those, which are fantastic as well.
Andy, what's, pardon the interruption, what's this latest one called?
A Song for Dark Times. But if people haven't read any of the John Rebus mysteries, start at the beginning, read through them. That's you grow with the with the protagonist.
Right.
In the latest one, he's retired, just like the Bosch novels. Harry Bosch is retired now and working, cold cases. Pretty kind of similar. So, like you, always got 3 or 4 going at the same time.
Yep, you got to. Well, you piqued my interest now. I usually veer away from fiction, but I've gotten a lot of flack for doing that from some of my really good friends who are avid readers. Barsi, you've got to check out, like this spy novel.
Yeah, I will qualify that by saying my wife reads very serious fiction, like things on the bestseller lists, and she's an avid reader as well. And I have to admit, I'm not doing that. I love series. Like I said, I love to fall in love with a character and read everything the author's written about them, and then now I've got like probably 15 series that waiting for the new book to come out in the series that I track.
So cool. Now, do you think these books are partially ghost written, or do you think
no,
Ian's full throttle?
Yeah, these guys are serious authors. This is not like, what's that one guy that's got a partner that's co-writing all of his books now? No, yeah, stay away from those. James Patterson.
It's not Patterson.
Yeah, James
it is Patterson.
Yeah, never been a big fan of that. So
he does a pretty good masterclass, by the way.
I'm sure.
Really good.
I'm sure he
really
knows.
Solid.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just, his book's never been. I've tried him, just not for me. But yeah, of course I'll probably get hate mail on that, but whatever. So let's talk some work.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about it.
All right. Now you do something called Team Tuesdays. Now, what is that?
I do, yes. So Team Tuesdays are designed, at least at Trey, where I am, specifically for our sales development team. Mm-hmm. And the purpose of Team Tuesday is, ultimately to help SDRs connect the dots, understanding, how the company is comprised. If you're going to look under the hood at the engine of the company, you get a much better understanding of each piece of the puzzle.
Right.
And so every Tuesday, a representative from a different business unit across the company will speak during the lunch hour from 12 to 1 and talk to them about, that function in particular. And it, primarily helps our SDRs get an understanding, like I said, of how to connect the dots in terms of how our company works. But as you know, this is immediately going to translate to the conversations they're having with our prospects. Yep. That way they're familiar with what systemic impact there could be if this prospect leverages our offering or not to various business units across their enterprise.
Yep.
And they could speak with, the SDRs can speak with certainty and knowledge because, they've been immersed in our Team Tuesdays.
No, I love it. I remember back early in my career, I think it was one of the first, maybe not the first startup, but maybe the second startup I'd been with as the VP of sales. Yeah, taking me around meeting everybody in the company in an instructional way, right? This is what this person does, this is what their role is, and I developed relationships, and I carried that on because I think so valuable, not just for building a team structure, which I think is crucial from a cultural standpoint, but if somebody asks a salesperson, how does your company make money? They could answer it.
That's right. I learned about it. I was first exposed to Team Tuesday at ServiceNow. The then CMO, Dan Rogers, had introduced the marketing team to Team Tuesdays. But it was a large enough team where we had to hear from different facets of just marketing. And I basically took that concept into my role at Trey, but obviously centered it on sales development and all the different business units across the company because we're a fraction of the size of ServiceNow. Sure. So we're able to do it, able to pull it off, and it's just it also breeds that learning culture,
right?
Because we have what we ask the SDRs to, arrive prepared, have some great open-ended questions where you can ask the speakers or presenters to go a little deeper here or there, and everybody learns as a result. Of course, we record it, chronicle it, catalog it for reference, as well as for onboarding of new hires. People from other business units are catching wind of it and asking if they could participate, but also they're pulling from our now online repository of recordings to learn for themselves. So everybody's winning.
No, I love it. I mean, I think that also gives sales an appreciation of the fact that everybody contributes to their success.
Exactly. And what's fun is, one team or presenter, of course, wants to one up the last one who went, oh, is that what product marketing was talking to you about last week? Well, here's what we're doing in finance. Check this out. Right. And that's super fun too.
Well, I just always remember a story, one startup, but we had a little mature at that point. But CEO of one of our largest clients showed up, and we weren't really sure. He's pretty obscure in his messaging about what he wanted to talk about. So he shows up in the lobby of the building, and it's myself who is running this division and CEO. And it's like, well, yeah, Paul, what can we help you with? and he said, I want to talk to Eileen. And I said, Eileen and customer support? Yeah. I said, okay. And this guy's CEO of like a $500 million company. Yeah. I said, sure. So we walk upstairs and we walk through the cubicles and we find Eileen. And we said, Eileen, here's Paul. And Paul turns to the CEO and me and says, just want to let you know, she's why we buy from your company.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. But it was, fabulous lesson. It's like, we obviously weren't paying enough attention to the account. That's right. Eileen was keeping us in the game and was probably insufficiently appreciated for that. Yeah. And it was a real eye-opener.
Here it was hanging on by a thread.
Yeah. But it was like, okay. That's when I said, okay, we got to get more involved with the entire company and so on. It's just, such a value on that. All right. So then prospecting day. You have Team Tuesdays. Now you have prospecting day. Yeah.
Another awesome event that I borrowed from my days at ServiceNow. This one was introduced by one of the marketing executives named Carolyn Cox. She brought prospecting day into ServiceNow, and I've used it at Trey as well. This is really cool, where we pin a day a month or a day a quarter where any and all teams that can contribute to generating pipeline contribute. And it's, deep focus for one dedicated, committed day where all you're doing is, pinging your network for potential referrals. Mm-hmm. You're phoning dormant leads. You're talking to closed lost opportunities from 6 months ago, et cetera. And you're breaking up the day into rounds. You've got serious competition going on throughout the day internally, killer awards and prizes for winning teams, winning individuals. And it runs the gamut, largest opportunity, first meeting in an existing customer, only a different business unit. It goes on and on. But it's super fun.
Now, do you create cross-discipline teams that work together, or is it?
We do indeed. Yeah, we do indeed. So this last prospecting day that we hosted at Trey, each of the teams was led by a sales development rep. And there were maybe 6 people representing different teams, different business units on each respective team. So a lot of the teams that aren't, typically on phones or reaching out to prospects are wondering, from a tactical perspective, okay, how do I invest this day? And so our SDRs and our sales development leadership, we're starting to share more and more practices. If you are a marketer, for example, or if you're in, our channel or any other department outside of sales development and sales, it's a blast. Oh, and it gets everybody focused on, okay, you need, X pipeline generated for each segment. And we could be doing better in topping off the respective pipelines. So here's your chance to contribute. And if you fall on your face, the next prospecting day is 4 weeks from now. So learn from this and, really prepare for the next one. And you'd be surprised what you can win and how many people are going to benefit from your hard work and preparation.
No, I love it. Absolutely love it. And I think it also builds empathy for within other departments for really how hard it is to sell, especially for, the SDRs. The job SDRs do is thankless in many respects.
Thank you. You're correct. It is thankless.
And to have the rest of the company appreciate just the effort and the part of themselves they have to invest in that job every day, I think is really important. That's
right. Yeah, that's also something that we've seen. And of course, that's not the primary aim of it, but that's some of the goodness that comes from it. And of course, I'm partial.
Sure.
I'm going to argue all day long that, the sales development reps work is the toughest or among the toughest gig in the house.
Yeah. Well, it's very hard to argue with that. I mean, it's
tough.
Yeah, it's tough work. I mean, when I started my career, and I've had this conversation with other people on the show, I had to go out in order to be trained to sell big computer systems, which is what I was hired to do. I had to go out and sell a bunch of small stuff first, which required a ton of prospecting. In the East Bay area, went from Fremont to Fairfield was my territory.
Wow.
Yeah, find a business park the car, and go troll for the day.
Door to door, sure.
It was like, I wanted to get through that period as fast as I possibly could.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that long corridor. That's my neck of the woods, but also with that approach. I come from the old school and used to do that as well in the healthcare industry. So sometimes I was walking into full-blown hospitals, going right up to the receptionist, trying to get a meeting right then and there with certain executives, and that was no easy feat. It worked every now and then, but it wasn't fun.
Yeah, no, it was never fun. And I was always surprised when I got a meeting.
Yeah, same here. Oh, are you sure? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I have told the stories. Yeah, I went into this one company. They were a fairly large home builder in the Bay Area, and I cold called the CEO. This was actually, I was starting selling computers at that point because construction industry was sort of going to be my patch. And I asked for the CEO, and really I almost started walking out the door. and the receptionist says, "Oh, well, he'll be right out." They're like, "What?
What? I'm sorry."
One of those things are like, "No, don't be there. Don't be there. Don't be there." and
all of a sudden, you're on, Paul. Let's go.
Right. And so he comes out, and he's this very sort of old school, very nicely dressed, slacks and expensive golf sweater and so on, and takes me into his office, and his desk is about the size of an aircraft carrier, but it was completely clean on top. And he says, "So what can I do for you?" And like any newly trained sales rep, I launch into my spiel. And he listens for just a few seconds, holds up his hands, or one hand, like, "Stop." I said, "Okay." He opens his top right-hand dress drawer and pulls out this stack of business cards, like 2 inches high. He takes it, spreads them out on his desk, or like a deck of cards. And I can see all my competitors, as well as probably everybody who had worked in my branch office in Oakland in the last 5 years before that.
Yeah.
And he said, "These are all the computer salespeople that have called on me in the last year. And I haven't bought from any of them. So why should I buy from you?"
Oh, boy. How'd you answer?
Well, pretty honestly, it's like, I don't know. But he wasn't talking about why should he buy from my company. He was talking about why should he buy from me?
From you.
And I was extremely fortunate because I that's my default thing, is just say I don't know. Is this guy sort of mentored me a little bit. And it took about a year, but I got an order from him. But that's why I talk about, you can learn how to sell from your customers. And this was one of several instances that point in my career where I learned from my customers. But yeah, sometimes if you don't ask to meet with people, you're never going to meet with them.
That's true. And you're right about the customers. I know you and I have talked about this before, even stack ranking some of the primary sources that can enable you to sell better. And number one, I think on both our lists, was customers. It's
pretty
a no-brainer.
Much. Yeah. I mean, if we had more time, I could tell all sorts of stories about that.
Yeah, same here. I've been walked out of stores before.
Oh, yeah.
That's not fun.
Thrown out.
Just next thing I knew, I was standing on the sidewalk with the prospect, and they're like, "Yeah, have a great day, bud." All right, thanks.
Well, my best one was selling to a large public company. This is in the Washington, D.C. area, where we were doing a custom development for them of a communication system. And they had said, "Yeah, we're going with you." I went out to negotiate the contract with the guy that was part of my team, and we'd been there, like, I guess it was the end of the first day, and we were making some pretty big progress. And this was like a $4 million deal. This was in today's dollars, like a $12 million deal.
No joke.
And I get a call. And not this pre-cell phone. So a secretary comes in and says, "This is a call from Mr. Paul." So great. Took it in the private room. And it was one of the co-founders of the company and our CEO. And they said, "How are things going?" I said, "Pretty good. We're making good progress. I think, we'll wrap this up tomorrow." They said, "Oh, well, that's great. We've got a little bit of a problem." Oh, really? What's that? Well, we had sort of a spreadsheet error when we were doing the quote. And the deal was they're going to pay us, $1 million+ to develop the product and then buy the product from us. We need to basically double our price so that we don't lose money on the deal.
Oh my goodness.
Double
it.
Yeah, in essence. And not just on the development, but also on the production. Production was like a 50% increase, but the double on development. And so I had to go out and tell this guy who was a senior VP of a large publicly traded company that, I've got some bad news. Basically.
Price is 2x now, sir.
Yeah. So basically, security sort of walked us out the door.
Thanks for playing.
Oh, no.
Here's the door.
I got the deal. I got the deal. It took a couple more days longer than I thought it was going to. But once I got the guy peeled off the ceiling and, full transparency, here's what the mistake was. Here's the story. And no one in the home office was any help at all. I was like,
right.
Can I get the CEO on the phone? No. We got it. That's not. I've been walked out of lots of offices in the past.
Oh yeah, we can go for days on that stuff. That's a great story.
Yeah, that was one of the great negotiation stories.
So fun. But
we had demonstrated tremendous value. The business, it didn't they were going to make so much money off it. Didn't fundamentally change the business case for them.
Mm-hmm.
It did. And the big thing was the senior VP was embarrassed more than anything because he was going to have to go back to his, to the board or whoever approved this, the executive committee, and ask for more money.
Sure. You've got a reputation to preserve.
Exactly. Yeah. And, we put a dent in that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, wow. Whatever, Well, sort of speaking of which, so last thing I wanted to cover is you talked about how to help companies prepare for a catalyst event, for startups, whether it's an IPO, an acquisition, investment. Yeah. So what was on your mind there?
Sure. I talk about that a lot internally, especially when, you're on a certain, stage of the maturity cycle of the company. You're living for this catalyst event to occur. And like you said, you could be going to the public market, you could be acquired, you could be acquiring a company. There's a number of different options, as we know. And so, I'm typically sharing internally with those who want to listen to me that, we have to prepare for this catalyst event, this day of judgment or scrutiny that's going to come. And I always liken it to, a group of investors or, let's say, shareholders parachute in, assess our battlefield. And let's just say I'm leading sales development. They might look at me and go, "Hey, Barsi, let's take a look at your blueprint for how you're running this ship. And are you running a tight ship?" And so I hand over this big, thick manual. They start flipping through pages. And I want to make sure that they're impressed that my leaders and I are running a buttoned up operation. And so therein lies the approach of working more on the business than in the business from a leadership standpoint. And then, for the individual contributors on our team, it's a matter of running their business within their business, their business within the business.
Right.
So that they're adhering to complying with processes that we have in place. They understand the strategy and can articulate it if asked. They understand that our objective is to drive, for example, the revenue pipeline as well as the talent pipeline. So this is what they're doing to prepare, living and working by our standards of excellence. And that way the investors, shareholders, parties that be are thumbing through this manual going, all right, this one's good to go. Next department, let's go check out this one down the hall. So I'm always working towards that catalyst event to take place. And, Andy, whether it happens or not, the point is that it makes sure that we're buttoned up in what we're doing.
Yeah. And I've worked through that in companies too, where we had very specific opportunities that we had identified as necessities to have in place before the catalyst event in order to really to get a valuation that we wanted.
Right.
So yeah, very fond memories of negotiating deals, knowing if we don't get this, we're not going to get the valuation we want, and the catalyst event's not going to happen.
Exactly. And so when you have, as you know, for the most part, sales development reps in particular, they're generally new to their professional careers. And if they're not, they're generally new to sales.
Right.
And so it's important to coach and teach on this very topic, because what happens is you start to drive that collective effort. You really get true teamwork and camaraderie going in a good way. And you start to build real healthy momentum because everybody gets that, hey, this catalyst event could happen at any moment.
Right.
We got to be buttoned up. And I like when we're all flying in formation like that.
It's a great expression. Yeah, flying in formation. I love it. Well, good. Well, Ralph, as always, a pleasure. We cover a lot of territory.
Same here, Andy. Love talking with you.
Well, we'll do this on a regular basis. We've been doing a regular basis recently.
We have, yeah. This is number 4 or 5. Yeah. Why stop now?
I know, but it's been 3 this year. I mean, it's the pandemic has brought out the best in Ralph Barsi.
Well, let's keep the train rolling. I look forward to the next visit.
All right. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks, Andy.
Okay, friends, that's it for this episode. First of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. I'm so grateful for your support of this program. And I want to thank my friend Ralph Barsi for sharing his insights with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, Sales Enablement with Andy Paul, on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you could also leave us a rating or a review and let us know how we're doing, we'd appreciate it. You can do all that on your phone in less than a minute as soon as this episode is over. So thank you for your help. And as always, thank you so much for investing your time with me today. Until next time, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.